Go. Right. Good morning and welcome to what is the Does My Card Still Work webinar on behalf of Construction Wave. I'm Steve Kerslake, the founder of Construction Sport and your host for today. What's quite exciting. It's the first one I'll be able to do and one that I'm highly interested in hearing about. So my background, obviously, been in the industry is very much ground worker based, but there's a lot of questions kind of I've had, but I get given to me all the time. And I think today's call should be a great way of nipping everything in the bud, really, and getting the point across and supporting a lot of people. So I'm joined today by a panel of great people: Hugh Jones from Flannery's, Paul Jenkinson from Accredix, and Alan O'Neill from CSCS. But gents, going based on where my screen, the outlay on it, if I just go across the way it is. So Paul, if you want to introduce yourself first, then we'll go across the board and then we'll get started.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Steve. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Paul Jenkinson. I represent a company called Accredix. Accredix is really a company that is set up to provide an e-learning online course, which is a new way of getting your CSCS white card. It's aimed very much at the professional environment rather than the kind of blue collar labourers or machinists, etc. So this is a course that has been tailored and written by professionals for the professionals, and basically it is aimed at people that need access to a building site to do their job but are not based full-time on a building site. So it's people like architects, building surveyors, quantity surveyors, etc. And it's 6 hours of new e-learning content which people can take online in their own time, and it also has a 1-hour exam at the end of that, which can be self-invigilated, i.e. you don't have to travel en masse if you've got a large workforce to a CITB test centre run with the CSCS. It can be done online in your offices within your resources, which means you choose the time and place of the exam rather than have to travel to whenever an exam is going on. So we'll get into the meat and a little bit more on that. But I set up the company about 3 years ago in conjunction with the CIC as a new way of getting professionals health and safety certified and then being able to apply for their white cards.
Great stuff. Cheers, Paul. Hugh, you're next on our screen.
Thank you, Steve. Morning, everybody. My name's Hugh Jones, and I work at Flannery Plant Hire. I'm the training standards manager here at Flannery. So part of my responsibility is looking after training standards within the Flannery company for the training standards for the plant operators that we employ. I recently set up at EKFB in Brackley a CPCS and NPAWS training centre there. And prior to my role with Flannery, I worked at NPAWS as their technical training and standards director for 11 years. So some of this will be of great interest to me.
Super, thank you. Then lastly, over to you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, and good morning, everybody. I'd just like to take a few moments to remind people of CSCS's role within the industry. And by doing so, I hope to show that the CSCS card, it does still work. And in fact, that it's never been as relevant than it is today, particularly in light of what is coming down the line with the Building Safety Act. But the card itself and CSCS, the card provides proof that individuals working on construction sites have the appropriate training and qualifications for the job that they do on site. And by ensuring the workforce are appropriately qualified, the card plays its part in improving standards and improving safety on UK construction sites. Really key point to hopefully set the context for some of today's discussion is that CSCS, we do not deliver training and we do not develop training. Our role is to verify what the industry tells us is a required standard for a particular occupation. So that's our role, to verify the standards that the industry has set. There are over 2.1 million cars displaying the CSCS logo. Sitting behind the vast majority of those cards the card holder has achieved a recognised qualification. So that provides the employer with a really simple process to check that their workforce are qualified. The employer doesn't need to be wading through loads of paperwork or databases to determine if someone is qualified. It's all stored within the card. That card can be electronically verified. A quick scan, all the details on that card come up on the screen, and the cardholder's training record is there. So that's how the industry ensures standards and safety are improved, and hopefully that shows how the CSCS card, that it does still work.
Lovely, thank you, Alan. Yeah, going straight into it then, based on what you said then, Alan, you guys are obviously advised on how to go about it, and is that from kind of a multi-organisations come to you with kind of what's going on in terms of how to go about the card being pushed out there?
Oh, well, as I say, CSCS, we simply verify that the applicant has achieved the appropriate qualifications for their occupation. So in the vast majority of cases, what we need to see is we need to see proof that you have achieved your qualification, or you're in the process of achieving that qualification. And we need to see you've passed the CITB Health, Safety and Environment test, or an approved equivalent to that test. And on top of that, there are certain occupations that will have other required pieces of training that are needed as well in order for us to issue a card. So those are the organisations that we will liaise with. We verify all of that with the organisations that issue those qualifications and that training. And that's what we need to check before we do issue a card.
And there's 2.1 million of those cards out there at the moment, you're saying, as well?
Yeah. 2.1 million cards, and this is where it gets complicated, which is the best way to explain it. There's actually 38 different card schemes, okay? Yeah. So, but they all display the CSCS logo. So the thing that unites all the card schemes together is the CSCS logo. And if they display the CSCS logo, then they're all meeting a certain standard. But the 38 card schemes, their CSCS is by far the largest scheme in terms of card numbers. We issue 1.1 million cards, or we have got 1.1 million cards, and the other 900,000 cards or so, they're made up of other card schemes that represent the real specialist sectors. So you're looking at plant, at demolition, at scaffolding, at the plumbers, at the electrotechnical sector, to name but a few. But there's 38 schemes across the whole construction and the built environment that are represented under the CSCS banner.
Are you able to keep track on that as well, year by year, how many of those cards you can see when they're going to be expiring, when they're not? Is it something we can see going forward, that are people renewing those cards?
Yeah, very much so. That is information that we keep, and we actually, so what we do is 6 months in advance of a card expiring, then that card holder is contacted to remind them that your card's coming up for renewal. So a card generally is valid for 5 years, and after about 4.5 years, we will contact that card holder to say, are you still in the industry? If so, here's the process to replace your card. Gotcha.
So are you doing that for this new system, what's coming in then as of next year, to let people know this? Is it a direct message to them, email? How's it go?
So the new, so you're talking about the withdrawal of cards under industry accreditation?
Yeah, so let's go back to that really, because I'm putting my head around all that. So what these changes that are going to happen, that's obviously
all right. Well, look, this is quite a lengthy subject, but I will get through this as quick as possible and then leave it to the questions. But industry accreditation is the biggest change that is taking place on the scheme. So just a quick piece of background to what industry accreditation is. This is where CSCS, historically, we have issued cards on the back of an employer's recommendation rather than the achievement of a qualification. Okay, so in the past, a lot of cards were issued without the need to achieve a qualification. However, back in 2015, the Construction Leadership Council, they announced their One Industry Logo Action, which effectively was saying from now on, cards can only be issued if the person is in the process of achieving or has achieved a nationally recognised construction-related qualification. So since 2015, we have introduced a number of measures to make sure we're in line with that. So we have replaced a lot of old cards that didn't require qualifications. But in 2019, we announced new rules around industry accreditation. And what those new rules are is that since the 1st of January 2020, all cards issued under IA, they expire at the end of 2024, and they cannot be renewed. So just to put that into context, Steve, there are approximately 60,000 cardholders impacted out of the 2.1 million. So, and it's that group, it's that 60,000 that now need to put a plan in place to move off IA. And what that plan generally means is they need to find a route onto another CSCS card. Just a bit more context around that. At the start of this year, Steve, that figure was 70,000. So in the last 4 months, 10,000 of those cardholders have gone onto the CSCS website. They've looked at the guidance and the support that's available for them, and they've made a decision to move off the card that they've got onto the appropriate card for their occupation. So what each of these 60,000 need to do next, that depends on their occupation, and it depends on what qualifications they may already hold. So there are a number of straightforward routes out of IA for these individuals, and none of these routes involve the individual going to college, because we know that for a lot of these experienced workers, the thought of going to college doesn't fly well at all. But I can hopefully, we've got time, I can take you through why they will not have to go to college. So and on top of that, not only do they not have to go to college, there's a lot of funding available for these individuals to achieve their qualifications. So in a nutshell, the change that's taking place involves 60,000 out of 2.1 million who need to put a plan in place to move off IA. And as I say, hopefully we've got time to discuss the different options that these individuals have, because I do believe that you will be surprised at how straightforward some of the options are for these individuals. And really, just to finish off on the removal of IA, this is nothing new. The industry has been moving towards a fully qualified workforce for many, many years now. The withdrawal of IA, it's the last in a long line of changes that have been happening over the last 10 years or so, in order to make sure that people are qualified. In the last 10 years, 500,000 construction workers have achieved a recognised qualification, and IA is just the last part of that jigsaw. But say, hopefully we've got time to take you through what options these individuals have.
Please do, if there's a few answers to, if you can go with that, and we'll actually work off that as possible, because yes, questions flying in already. Everyone's getting quite excited, I think, by seeing it.
Okay, no problem. So recognizing, so again, keeping it in the context that we're talking about 60,000 out of 2.1 million, recognizing that these individuals will have been in the industry for quite some time, because another important point just to raise is CSCS, we haven't actually issued a new card under IA since 2010. So we are talking about legacy here. So the people who have got a card under IA today, they've had it pre-2010, and only until now the rules have allowed them to renew that card every 5 years. Okay, so that's where the 60,000 come from. They've had their card since 2000, from before 2010. But recognizing they've been in the industry for a while, there's a number of options for them. Because they've been in the industry for so long, some of them will already have achieved the necessary qualification for their occupation. They've been renewing under IA all these years because it was just the easy thing to do. The system allowed them to do it, so they just kept renewing the card that they already had. If you've already got the qualification, you simply just move across to the appropriate CSCS card, and all you'll have to do, pay your £36 for your new card, make sure your CITB Health, Safety and Environment test is up to date, and you will be issued with your new CSCS card. Similarly, recognizing they've been in the industry for a while, a number of these 60,000, they will have academic construction related qualifications, or they may have become members of professional bodies, in which case it's a very similar process, very simple process, just to replace your CSCS card. And the last group of what I would call the straightforward routes, this is, I think it's the most interesting one, Steve, and this is those who actually don't need a card. They've had a CSCS card for 20 plus years. They've always had one, and they feel as though they need to keep their CSCS card. Recognizing they've been in the industry for a while, they may well have changed roles. They may have moved into a more office-based environment. They may have moved into management roles. They may even be in leadership roles. And these individuals, they're not attending site every day to work on the tools. They're attending site once a week, once a fortnight, to attend a site meeting or a project meeting. In that scenario, they do not need CSCS cards. Cards are only for those who work in core construction activities. So it's one of the biggest challenges we face via social media is it happens on a regular basis, where you will get a director of a company or a chief executive of a company who will say, CSCS, I've had a card for 25 years. I do not want to lose it. I want to keep it. I'm the chief exec of this organization. And it's like, a chief exec does not need a CSCS card. They're not there to work on the job. Yeah.
So on that, and talking from my own experience, I don't have a CSCS card. I've not had one for 10 years. An actual card. I've kept up to date with stuff. But so you're saying I can visit site without that card still, as long as I'm not carrying out manual duties?
Yeah. So and for exactly that reason, that's why we withdrew the construction site visitor card back in, I think it was 2017, 2019. We had a card which was for people visiting site, but the industry told us they no longer needed that card. They didn't want that card because those individuals weren't there to do a construction related role. They were there to attend a site meeting. They were there to do, work in the site canteen or something. Those individuals do not need a card. And what the sites will do, Steve, is they should have processes in place to manage those individuals when they arrive on site. So it may be an induction, or if it's a particularly risky site, that individual will be escorted the whole time that they are there. So those were the easy routes out of IA that I took you through. But I just need to explain that I do recognise that not all of the 60,000 will fall into one of those categories that I mentioned earlier. There isn't a straightforward route for everybody, and there will still be many of those 60,000 who haven't got a qualification or fit one of those scenarios. And it's those individuals, they need support and they need guidance about what their options are. And that support, that guidance, that's been defined by an industry working group. So a task group was set up by the industry specifically to deal with the removal of industry accreditation. And that task group, their whole mantra, Steve, was recognizing how valuable these individuals are. They've been in the industry for 20 plus years. We don't want to lose them. Their knowledge is so valuable, and we want to make this process as easy as possible for them. So what that industry task group did is they confirmed, I think it was late last year, they confirmed that these individuals, they're not going to college. They can do an on-site assessment, or they can do a professional discussion. That's how they will achieve their qualification. Okay, so none of those routes involve going to college, and the funding is there for them to complete their qualification. And my understanding is, I'm not an expert in funding, but my understanding is CITB have really stepped up here, Steve. They have doubled the amount of funding that's available for these experienced workers. There's up to £1,500 available for completing the on-site assessment or the professional discussion. So if you're an experienced worker, either of those options should be reasonably straightforward in order for you to get your qualification, and you absolutely do not have to attend college. So that's the options that are available. I would encourage anybody on the webinar to go on to the CSCS website, www.cscs.uk.com/IA, and everything that I've just mentioned there is put into some flow charts within the website to help you identify what steps you need to take. So how does the average kind of self-employed worker on his own access that funding then? That's a really interesting point. So I've been at a number of industry meetings with CITB grants team in the room, and that very question has been asked, Steve, and it's the same response every time. But yes, primarily the funding is for those who are registered with CITB. However, CITB have confirmed it's not uncommon for an employer to put a self-employed individual through that training. So I would encourage any self-employed person out there who potentially needs to go through one of these options, is to talk to who your employer is on site, and you may find they'll be very willing to put you through that training. What about the ones that aren't very willing? Because I know a few of them. Yeah,
It's
well,
very much
yeah.
down. We're in a position now with workers, and we've got a lot on our plate where we've got to deal with people.
Yeah.
We need someone next week whose card's ready to go. Well, I haven't got time to be fishing around. We've got too much pressure from the top from us. How do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is where we get into the difficult area of you know, as self-employed, you are your employer.
Yeah.
And you know, and as an employer, you have a responsibility to look after your own training effectively. But I would explore those other options, talk to your employers that you've been working with, see who would put you, if any of them are willing. It may not just be, you know, you may be doing 2 or 3 jobs at a time, sort of thing. So you may have a couple of options, but ultimately, when it comes to the self-employed, you know, there was a decision made at some point in your career to go self-employed. At that point, you've made a decision to be your own employer and all the responsibility that comes with that decision. But where you can, talk to an employer who may be able to put you through that training.
Yeah, that's one. I think the one thing, for myself is it's quite. A lot of people probably don't get the choice of being self-employed or not. It's the go-to because there's very rarely companies out there on the ground that will offer you employment, especially in kind of the smaller subcontracting companies. But I don't go too much. So in that space, thank you for that, Alan. Just before we'll go in houses, and we'll come back to some of the questions on there. But Paul, so you're in the space with Acrodex in terms of you're helping the kind of the professional side of it, and the area that Alan went on about, saying people who might not necessarily think they need the ticket, but some of these people do need it, and that's where you guys come in, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, we're very much at the professional end of the business. So we provide CSCS authorization for professionals, and professionals obviously are people like, you know, Certified Institute of Builders, the CIHT, for, you know, although, you know, there's 42 professional bodies that make up the CIC. So I guess my question to Alan would be there, are you saying then that the professional world don't need health and safety training to get the CSCS white card to be able to go on site? Because these are people that aren't based full-time on sites. They're people that, you know, visit sites. It may be very rarely that they visit sites, you know, perhaps once a month, once a quarter, that sort of thing, to do their job, but they're not based full-time on site. So, you know, from what you were saying then, I got the impression that perhaps you're saying they don't need the health and safety and the white card, the CSCS white card, then in that process to be able to visit sites.
Yeah, well, again, it's strictly the CSCS card is for those who are working in core construction activities. If you are only visiting site once in a while to attend a site meeting, I would say you'd not be required to have a CSCS card. But if some of your professionals are going on site and they're doing surveys and they're doing all that kind of work, yes, absolutely, they would need the white card that you've been talking about earlier to prove that they've got their professional body membership and they've got their health and safety tests up to date as well. But if you're not there to walk around, to physically walk around the site and do some construction related activity, you do not need a CSCS card. And this is a really important point on this one, Paul, because we do get quite a lot of criticism about it. Comes a lot that CSCS is a money making scheme, and it's something that we're continually trying to address. Is we're not about selling more cards. We're about making sure the quality of those cards is right for the industry. So if we can up the quality of the cards, we're very happy to do that. If that means that we sell less cards, we're very happy to do that.
Okay, I guess my question on from a professional standpoint is, you know, how do you police that? Because a lot of the pushback we're getting from the professional guys are, you know, we go on sites that aren't necessarily what you would view as a construction site. You know, they're brownfield sites or they're pre-construction sites, et cetera, but they're still going into an environment that, you know, the industry via the CLC and the CIC are telling them that they need, you know, to be CSCS accredited. But a lot of the professionals are saying, well, we're not going to go down that route because actually at the end of the day, we're never asked for the cards during our working day. So there is a massive conflict here between the industry saying, well, you should really have them, and the professionals saying, well, we never get asked for them, so we're not going to do it.
Yeah, and yeah, no, that is a valid point, Paul. And this is where it comes down to CSCS's role within the industry. Our role is to verify that you have the qualifications or the professional body membership and the health and safety test that the industry has told us that you need for your particular occupation. There is a job to be done with the employers, with the principal contractors, to start checking those cards thoroughly when they arrive on site. So we know that the checks carried out on CSCS cards, it's not standardized across the whole industry. Some sites will check every single card every single day coming through the site gates. And as you say, you've got those brownfield sites where there's nobody asking for a card at all. That comes down to we CSCS and the other card schemes, we have a job to do with the industry, with the Construction Leadership Council, to standardize the checking of cards. The goal here is that every time you go on a site, no matter where it is in the country, no matter what your role is, if you need a card, you should be producing it and you should be checking it. But there's limits to how that can happen. But that's the root of the problem, is there's inconsistency in the way cards are checked.
And I think that, yeah, that there is a massive disconnect there between, you know, what we all want to happen and what the actual reality is within that. And you know, within the professional world, I think, you know, everybody wants to be professional, everybody wants to get their white cards, etc. But actually, at the end of the day, it is expensive. It is, you know, a time-consuming process for them to take half a day off of work, travel to a test centre, you know, all the travel costs and everything that are associated from that, to be able to take the exam, when you know, there are better solutions out there for it. And I'm not going to go into a CredEx solution, but it's an online course where you can take it in your own environment, and you take the exam again in your own offices when you want to take the exam, as opposed to when the exams are available at a CITB test centre or CSCS test centre. But that, you know, that it all comes down to kind of implications and you know, if a professional hasn't got the CSCS white card, they're not being stopped from going on site and doing their job. So you know, they're turning around and saying, well, actually, we don't need one at the end of the day. Where you go to the CLC and they're saying, well, actually, everybody should have one. You know, we're all professionals and we all need to get it through. So it's all about, you know, the implications of not having it. How do you check it? Therefore, how do you make it fair? So you've got a lot of organizations that are going out there saying, we're going to do the right thing, we're going to get our CSCS cards. But then you've got a lot of organizations that are out there saying, well, we're not going to bother because we never asked for them. So
and there's been a lot of work done around that, Paul. And last April, we launched the CSCS Smart Check app. And that is a way, so we were getting feedback from this that some people aren't checking cards because they've got no system to do it on. You know, because not every site's got the big expensive turnstiles and the card reading machines and all that sort of stuff. So we introduced the CSCS Smart Check app. It's a free app. You download it off Android, Google Play, and the Apple Store. It's free to use, doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't matter what one of those 38 card schemes turns up on site. You've got it on your mobile phone, and you can check that card. So we are now working to expand the use of that app across the industry, because historically they've been telling us, well, we've got nothing to check the cards with, so we're not checking them. If they've got the app now, which they can put on their mobile phone, so you don't have to have the big turnstiles, you can put it on your mobile phone and you can check all 2.1 million of those cards. So that should improve the card checking. And the next step that we're doing is the app was originally introduced just on your mobile phone. In the next couple of weeks, a few weeks, we will be announcing the next version of that app, which will get installed into those turnstiles. So our vision is, in the not too distant future, probably in the next couple of years, no matter what site you turn up on, no matter what card gets shown to the site management team, it can be checked using the one system.
Yeah, I think there's an assumption there again that you know, all building sites have turnstiles and all building sites have a site manager and all that sort of stuff. A lot of the professional world don't live in that or don't work in that environment. You know, they'll turn up on brownfield sites where there isn't that ability to be done. So there isn't the incentive for them to get a CSCS white card because they don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
Just on that, thanks, Paul. Just moving on, I'm conscious we've got Hugh there as well. But Hugh, so in the world of Flannery Plant Hire, then how is it these kind of changes coming into you guys? Obviously, a lot of plant operators, the same system applies, really, isn't it, with CSCS card and the CPCS/MPAWS?
Yeah, it's the first thing to say is something that Flannery support. We recognise, and I think, Alan, please correct me if I'm wrong, it is the decision to withdraw industry accreditation, or as you probably tell from the colour of my hair, I know it as grandfather rights.
Yeah.
It wasn't a CSCS decision to do that. It came from the CLC. I think I'm right in saying that, Alan, aren't I?
That's correct, Hugh.
So you know, there are things that need to be done. We are currently going through a process where we are checking all our certainly the CPCS competent card holders, competent operator card holders, and ensuring that anybody who falls into the category where they may have achieved it. I did myself many years ago, achieved the card through industry accreditation. I put down the route of the competence interview or the professional discussion through that card scheme. It's not an issue with NPAWS blue card holders, because NPAWS only accepted VQs for the issue of a blue card, so there was no industry accreditation attached to that. But yes, and anyone outside of the plant operator role, we are looking at putting them through the relevant person, whatever their job role will be, putting them through the VQ route or the professional qualification as required. So yeah, there is work to be done, but at the end of the day, if from our point of view, if it means that everyone is on the level playing field, then that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, super. Thank you, Hugh. On that one with the CSCS and even the NPAWS, we've actually got this ourselves with our own plant operators at the moment. So you get your NPAWS ticket, then you get a CSCS hologram to that as well now, isn't there? So the CSCS is literally part of those two tickets.
Well, there are two versions of an NPAWS card. There is the construction card, the NPAWS construction card, which bears the CSCS logo, and there is the NPAWS traditional card, which covers industry sectors that NPAWS are active in outside of construction.
Yeah.
So even so, and anybody operating under NPAWS in the construction sector would be required to hold the CSCS logo on their card. And a lot of the tier ones, the major contractors, over the years who declined to accept NPAWS cards will know the majority of them now accept NPAWS as long as they hold the CSCS logo.
So it has to be that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. On that, with the in terms of the actual getting the CSCS card as well, because that's one thing I see a big problem is, personally, I've been in a lot of colleges and different areas outside of the industry where people want to come in. But is there any changes to how they're going to look at people who get their initial card, Alan, in terms of the touchscreen test? I know, because again, touched on what Paul said, even from the professional, the white collar side, guys are having to have days off work to go and do it, lose a day's money, transport to where they are, pay for a test, pay for the card. It's a good few £100 realistically what's going to cost them. Is there any way or any thoughts from the CSCS? I know it comes again probably from the Leadership Council, but any way these people can be trained on site, even with the touchscreen test within the 2 years, really?
Yeah. So yeah, the touchscreen test, and this is a good opportunity just to make it really clear that the test is not owned by CSCS. It's not delivered by CSCS. We simply verify that you've passed the CITB Health, Safety and Environment test, or an approved equivalent, which Paul's been talking about, and we have within the professional sector. So it would be CITB. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have mobile test centers where it, you know, a lorry would drive to, but I suspect they're for the more remote locations rather than cities and that kind of thing, where there will be test centers. But the need for someone to pass that test, it absolutely is an absolute fundamental of achieving a CSCS card. You do need to have passed that health and safety test as well as your qualification before we'll issue a card. So if you're experiencing colleagues who are having difficulty getting to a test center to do that test, then I would recommend you pick that up with CITB. They own that test. They deliver that test through a provider called Pearson VUE. And Pearson VUE are, you know, they're a big educational organization. I think they're global. But if you get in touch with CITB, if you've got a particular location that you know people are struggling to get the test done in, and let CITB know, and they will work out a provision for that area.
Yeah, because one thing we see going into the colleges, I see it firsthand that the likes of Network Rail and TfL were handpicking construction workers out of the colleges to take them, because they've made it very, very easy for them to go get an apprenticeship in the TfL or Network Rail, and we were effectively losing people by the day. And there was, on average, these apprentices, I think they were doing it with 3 days of work at college, and a lot of them didn't have actual jobs either. And a lot of the guys in the college didn't actually even know what a CSCS card was. Is there kind of any way the CSCS, again, to go back to CITB, I'm sure you're probably saying now, that needs to be referred back to them in terms of?
Yeah, well, I think you've touched on a really important issue there, Steve, and one that goes back for quite some time and is way beyond CSCS's gift. I think what you're talking about is that in colleges, there are still a lot of young learners going in and doing a course and then struggling to get employment afterwards. So they're doing that construction course. They've done their 2 years, 18 months, whatever it may be, and they believe they're leaving college ready for work. And these tend to be training programs. So my understanding is there's 60,000 young learners start every year in college in a construction related training qualification. But that qualification isn't what the employers are looking for, because it's not vocational.
Yeah.
Whereas when you look at the apprenticeship route, there's half that number go through apprenticeships. So why is the system putting people through courses that don't make them ready for work? Whereas you've got the apprenticeship route, which does make you ready for work, yet there's very few going through that route compared to the training qualifications. So it's a huge problem. It's one for industry, it's one for government. But my understanding is that conversation is happening right now, that the whole review of the funding for those courses has been looked at to improve the outcomes for the learner. Because at the end of the day, if you've done 2 years at college, you would like to think you're ready for work. Yet the employers are saying this isn't what we're looking for.
Yeah, what I see personally, all these youngsters in the college didn't have connections or networks where they could find employers. There was no middle people. They had a lot of projects coming to them saying we can help you out, but then nothing really come of it. And at the same time, it was, in my theory, it was, if we actually had the best interest for these people in the college there, our moral compass was maybe a little bit more aligned. We could literally say, as soon as they get into that college, get their CSCS card in their hand, and then start your apprenticeship. Because if all goes wrong, like it's shown it does, they fall out of college without that, and then they just go into another industry. If they fall out of college and they've got a CSCS card in their hand, you know, you can get a job tomorrow in our industry, and I think that's probably one of the huge benefits. But I'm just going to, conscious we've got 40 minutes in, and there's a hell of a lot of questions, so I do want to try and get a few people's points across or questions across, a few things answered. But in terms of Stuart Shuttleworth says MPAWS and NOCN have developed their own renewal test that can be done at home. Why can't a labourer do so? Is that something you think we could see one day? If any gents got an answer for that one, it'd be
I was just going to bring that up, Steve. So, I mean, you know, the thing that struck me, you know, we are in the year 2023, right? You know, we are an internet environment. We're an internet community. We all need the internet to pay bills, to do our banking, to do other bits and pieces. You know, to understand that, you know, one of the solutions is that the CITB can drive a lorry to a certain environment, you know, so people can log on and everything, you know. And also 2.1 million people that have got CSCS cards, you know, that's an awful lot of people traveling in their cars, or, you know, traveling via public transport, etc., to test centres to do that. Surely, you know, we must be able to embrace an online test that is easy for everybody, that is accessible by everybody, that, you know, not just the CredEx, but the CITB as well. Now, I know that the CSCS rely on the CITB to about 98% of your business, I think, Alan. You know, so the CITB and the CSCS are very much aligned from that. But to have, you know, 2.1 million people, when they do their tests, driving around the country to test centres to do that, or having lorries turn up at, you know, local environments, that's really not a good thing for the environment. And I think that we as an industry should be looking at that, saying, actually, we should be embracing new technologies and making it easy for people like you that has, you know, a distributed workforce of many different disciplines within it, that everybody can get on the same level of health and safety, easy and cheaper than currently is out there in a better way for the environment, as well as everything else that we're talking about. So when you say all the apprenticeships guys, Steve, that you're talking about, you know, all those guys have grown up on an internet world. They've all got everything on their mobile phone. They know what they're doing. They should be able to access a course that is, you know, the course learning via their mobile or their PC, for example. And then we should be able to provide them with an easy test to be done either online, which can be done in an invigilated or a proctored manner that makes it easy for the industry to do this and get people health and safety certified. We should be, you know, we should be begging people to do health and safety rather than putting barriers in the way all the time and not trusting these people to be able to do that.
You made great point there, Paul. I think the answer to that one, Andrew, when Construction Wave would take it out there, let's make construction touchscreen tests net zero, basically, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
If they're going to drive towards net zero, that's a massive amount of.
If I could just add in it, I think absolutely. I think Paul's touched on some very key points, but also used the word easy. It shouldn't be easy. It's health and safety. It has to be. There has to be a certain level of rigor there. So we absolutely do not want to be lowering the level of the standard of that test. How it's delivered, that's completely different. I think the world has to, you know, the construction world has to start to listen to these other ways of delivering these courses. The standard of the course must be maintained, but delivery, Paul, you mentioned proctoring and invigilation. That's absolutely key. So whatever the solution may be in the future, you have to absolutely be confident that there's no malpractice taking place when those tests are taken. And I think that may be some of the stumbling blocks right now. I'm not saying they can't be overcome, but I think why we might be in the world that we're in right now is there's still technology still needs to give confidence that people are not achieving that health and safety tests through fraudulent means.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think the standard of health and safety exams, the standard should be absolutely out there, and you know, people should earn it, but we should be making it easier for them to access the learning of it. You know, and it's, you know, I'll put construction up with the financial world, where people can gain access to, excuse me, talking my throat. They can access the content of the learning a lot easier, and construction needs to kind of stand up and you know, be equal to that. You know, it's not a challenge that we should be shirking away from. It's one that we should embrace. We should be making it easy for people to access the content, but still maintain the you know, the exam. I totally agree with that. So that we get the best people going through. But people like you and other big organizations that employ large workforces, you know, are spending an awful lot of money just getting their guys through a simple health and safety course. You know, that we shouldn't be putting barriers in the way of learning from that point of view. And e-learning and online learning and everything else should be a lot easier. And I think that, you know, your relationship with the CITB is obviously very close, and you rely on each other to get the 2.1 million through. There has to be a way of breaking that down and, you know, making sure that we use technologies that are out there that other industries use and other industries are very successful in using, you know, into the construction world.
So yeah, Paul, Hugh, just one for you on that as well, because you obviously, in terms of the training world, you guys are training a lot of drivers up effectively on the computer simulators, aren't you? So yeah, and that's been a huge success, isn't it? Really,
it has. It certainly has. And the simulators that we use, we have one trailer set up at the test center I mentioned in Brackley at a section of HS2 at EKFB, which has been very successful. But I do take the point that as is a very important element, the HS&E test at the various levels, very important element of the training and competence of the workforce. And to make the test more easily accessible and more convenient to access from an employer's point of view, it is a big thing for us, I think, because we have to bear in mind it isn't just the cost of taking the test, it's sending people away to test centers, as Paul has mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so on that,
so there's more cost attached to it than just paying for the test.
Yeah, so on that, Hugh, is there kind of, there's nothing to catch you out at all, but so you would train a machine driver up in the simulators do everything like that. He's effectively a CPCS machine operator. Do you then have to send him to a test centre somewhere else to do his HSE test, or can you do that on Brackley and things like that?
A lot of them will already have achieved. We'll advise them that they need to achieve the relevant test before they come for the training.
Okay.
Because under the rules of the schemes that we do the training, they must have achieved the test before the card can be issued anyway. With CPCS, they can't take the test unless they've achieved the HS&E test.
Yeah.
I think it's still the same under NPOS as when I was there, that they can take the test, but they can't claim the card until they can show they've taken the test and passed it.
Yeah.
So
just had on that, yeah, Stuart Shutworth's come back with the lorries are no longer available with the touchscreen test, unfortunately. So just go again, there's multiple questions. I'll try and get through some of these quicks and keep everyone happy, keep the millions satisfied. Anyone on the CLC or CITB from Andy Stevens actually worked on the tools and therefore have experience in the real world? That's what, so this is the Leadership Council that pushed this, then you say, Alan? Is it kind of?
Yes. So the Construction Leadership Council, we do have to give them a bit of credit here. That they recognised some time ago that 38 individual card schemes operating individually across the industry wasn't helping anybody. It was just causing mass confusion. And so if you put yourself in a site manager's job and an MPORS card turns up on site and a CSCS card turns on site and an ECS, there's 38 different cards, so making it very confusing and how to check them properly. So the CLC back in 2015, they confirmed that we should all follow certain standards. So we all should display the CSCS logo, but you don't display the CSCS logo until you've absolutely confirmed there's a qualification in place for every occupation within your scheme, that you are, when it comes to a skilled occupation qualification, it has to be a minimum of the NVQ level 2 or an equivalent. And that all 38 card schemes, we need to get behind electronic card checks. That's why we've got the CSCS Smart Check. It checks all 38 cards, all 2.1 million cards using one single piece of software. It will check them all. So the CLC has sort of brought all that together and it's raised the bar. So that's why 500,000 construction workers over the last 10 years have achieved the qualification, because the CLC have said you all got to raise your standards. And that's why when I was talking about industry accreditation, that is the last piece. It's the last 60,000 who need to go through that process, and then we've finished that journey. Everybody's now on a minimum sort of qualification. We've got a baseline now across the industry.
Have they got, just from a personal interest really on it, is there any marketing strategies or programs in place to get this message out to people in terms of not just through, pardon me for saying it, but kind of white collared news articles online? Is there anything to do with the actual media companies that are talking to the guys direct? Is there ways that we can work with you in any way, or anyone can work with you to get the message out loud and clear from the horse's mouth?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very happy to work with you, Steve. There's been lots done with the likes of Construction Inquirer and you know the online media outlets. We work very closely with the employers, and we work closely with the training organisations to make sure that those messages do get out to the industry. But there's always more that can be done. This is a particularly challenging change, because these are very experienced workers that we're talking about here, and we just, it's really important that they understand the industry recognizes their experience, values their experience, and this is why they're making the options for them as straightforward as possible.
Steve, can I come quickly back on that? So, Alan, you mentioned that 60,000 obviously is the amount that you've got to get through to balance that up. I just remind you, there's 200,000 members of the professional body that aren't taking the CSCS exams, that should be doing it, because they don't see it as integral to doing their job, and they're not, the CSCS cards aren't being checked at source when they go onto building sites or brownfield sites or whatever. So, you know, there's still a big number of people out there that we need to get hold of and provide them with the incentives to take the CSCS card. So it's not just that 60,000, there's another 200,000 in the professional world. And Steve, to answer your question about marketing and bits and pieces, you know, the one thing that we battle against as a new provider of health and safety training for CSCS white cards is, you know, and I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but it's the CSCS relationship with the CITB. if you go onto the website, it's, you know, you must take a CITB test to be able, or training to be able to take the HSE, the CSCS HSE course, an exam. You know, the two are very much interlinked. So trying to break down, Alan, again, it's great to hear you say you'll work with everybody doing that. You know, we're trying to work with the CSCS to make sure that we get, you know, the equivalent space we can within your marketing and bits and pieces to show that the world that there is a different course out there to the CITB. But, you know, the message we often get from you guys is that we rely on 97–98% of our business comes from the CITB, so therefore we're going to have them promoted up front. That's a very difficult, you know, hurdle for us to get over, to get our message out. We do a number of webinars and bits and pieces, particularly to the professional world, to do that. There are many different organisations, as apart from the CITB, that have potentially better ways for sections of the construction world, and we would like to have a fair shout at providing the you know, the people with new knowledge on the new ways. And you know, in terms of cost, ours is £49.99 for a 6-hour e-learning course with 2 exam attempts. You know, that's a massive cost saving on having to go out to a test centre and taking time out of work and all that kind of bits and pieces. So there are other options out there. We do need to break down, I think, that relationship that you have with the CITB. I know it's important for you both, and you've done a great job in getting to where it is, but that's really where we are.
Yeah, Paul, I think that's a conversation outside of this webinar. We can take that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's yeah.
On the so we're pretty same with it. Yeah, that's what I said in terms of getting the message across there. It's even just short, sharp bullet points of this is what we're doing, this is what it is, and this is how it is. The guys, obviously, I always go back to it because it's literally on what it is. I know, and for a few people on the asking questions now, there's a lot of these 50–60,000 people we're talking about. These are livelihoods. This is dinner on plates. This is people's kids being fed at night. And there's a lot of worry, anxiety, all that kind of stuff, and stress what's coming with this because it's not made simple. I'm like I say, I'm a ground worker. I've come here to try and identify what's going on as well. But in terms of the mental health stuff, it's until we get the message out loud and clear. And I think we're making a start today by doing this. If we can pursue this conversation on and get some key points about it, Amazon, as it goes a bit off subject, but Amazon are so successful because they make buying stuff within 2 or 3 clicks. You can't get a CSCS ticket. I know site managers who can't work out how to book a CS test. I can't get it. The lads that work for me can't get it. But if we can simplify everything, the world will be a better place, I think. But too much in that. But I think, we're very, very conscious with the mental health side of things that I personally see and us as organisations see, is this is going to, it's kind of smash it. And I'd love, again, it's who are behind the Construction Leadership Council. It's a mystery that I'm sure only very few people are allowed to know that, but we won't go into too much of it. But it's just we really want these people can voice out loud like you are today, Alan. What's been brilliant is just to let us know that some of the things that we can do. Let's simplify it. It's simple, stupid. I've always been told. But
No, absolutely, Stu. And I think we should share some key links to key information after this session with everybody on the webinar, because I say visit the CSCS website, because all the help and support for these individuals is all documented on there in really simple flow charts. So we are keeping it simple, and how you claim the funding for that as well. Follow us on Twitter at CSCS. We put every announcement we make, we will put out on Twitter, so people can follow us on Twitter. And we also have a free newsletter which goes out roughly about every 6 weeks, and we do a lot of focus around industry accreditation and the steps that people can be taking. So if you go onto the CSCS website, on the homepage down the bottom, you can register for a free, just put in your email address and you'll get a free newsletter every 6 weeks. It keeps you up to date with what's happening within CSCS.
Sure, thank you. We're just going to go through. We can rattle through some of these questions that are thick and fast. I'm going to get a lot of abuse from people saying you didn't ask my question if I don't. But assuming what Alan said, so as long as you order a new card prior to the end of 2024, you can still apply for a card that will last 5 years. It's from Gerard Kelly.
If you've got a card under IA today, you will not be able to renew it unless you have achieved the qualification for your occupation. So we do need to see the qualification and the health and safety test.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. To ensure you keep this from Debbie Colton, this one, to ensure you keep the quality, would it be helpful if the relevant standards were digitized, that is machine readable, so more accessible and open to interpretation? To ensure you keep the quality, would it be helpful if the relevant standards were digitalized, I suppose it should be.
I think that's a question for CIT. CSCS don't look
Yeah.
after standards, CITB do in construction.
Yeah, okay. Would from Davidas Matuvicius, sorry about that, I'm not translating that one. Would be better to go fully digital and keep cards within the CITB app. Is that something? I don't know too much on that. Is there, do your cards go onto the CITB app? Is
Well, that's a really interesting point. So within CSCS, we have an app called My CSCS, and you can get a digital version of the card.
Okay.
I think, again, one for Hugh as well, but it's a discussion for the 38 card schemes. Yes, we've all now can read our cards electronically, but do you actually need a piece of plastic? You know, talking about the environment, do we need to be producing 2.1 million pieces of plastic? So there's a wider discussion within the Alliance to move potentially to virtual cards like your boarding pass at the airport. We already have that, but there's a conversation to get all 38 card schemes onto an electronic card as opposed to a piece of plastic.
Cool. So Rory Butler, question for CSCS. Will site operators need to implement new verification infrastructure, digital or otherwise, to check a worker's eligibility to match the new regulation? And if so, what might that look like? How soon should it be implemented, and how will uptake be monitored by industry bodies like yourselves?
I don't fully understand the question, but I think what they're saying is with the CSCS Smart Check app, will you be able to read all these new requirements that are coming out of the Building Safety Act? So since Grenfell, the Building Safety Act has come out, and it's going to introduce even higher bars to get for certain occupations. So you may have to do continuous professional development. You may have to do fire safety awareness in certain occupations before you get your CSCS card. Should that come in? Yes, CSCS and the Alliance, the CSCS Alliance, which is the 38 card schemes, we're in discussions with the industry to make sure that all of that can be surfaced on the Smart Check app.
Lovely, thank you, Alan. Another one from Stuart Shuttleworth. No one monitors the site management team. It's obviously a rule for the site management team and a different one for the operatives. Why are CSCS not enforcing on sites and conformance requirement? Is that, I suppose he's going, does CSCS go out there to see if things are being on site?
Again, it's a good opportunity to again explain our role. We verify you've got the necessary qualifications and training. What happens on site, that's the responsibility of the site management team and the principal contractor. So it's not our role to be going out there enforcing what happens on site. Each site will operate differently, but they should have policies in place around CSCS cards.
Okay, Stuart Shuttleworth again. The requirements of cards seem is down to the principal contractor and whether you're working on site or not. If they say you need, if that is final, why are they not being enforced to allow people like Steve on site? The requirements of cards seem to be down to the principal contractor. So if I walk onto a site without a CSCS card and just for instance, one of the Mr. Tier 1 contractor says you can't come when you haven't got one, do I have a right to be able to be on that site, or does it come down to?
I think the Tier 1 contractor in that scenario is acting appropriately. If you're there to do a construction related role, the requirement is you should be able to show your CSCS card and prove to that employer that you are qualified to do the job that you're doing on site. So I'm sure we all know the statistics, but the vast majority of accidents happen when somebody's driving a piece of plant or working at heights and they're not qualified to do that. The card tells that site management team they're here to lay bricks, they're level 2 qualified, and the site should be saying, I'm going to make sure that is what you're here to do. I'm going to make sure you're not doing other roles that you're not qualified to do.
Ian Pickard just picked up on that one. Someone needs to tell Tier 1 and major house builders they will not let them on site. So I think that's, again, there's probably a lot of people. That's a big learning to me today. I think there was to yourself as well, Paul, wasn't it? That a lot of us actually don't need the card apparently. But yeah, if that's, it'd be nice if that as a rule from yourselves, the head of CSCS, could put that across the industry so we know that. Then yeah, it's just
Well,
about,
it comes down to implications again, you know. So we're talking about that we won't trust people at a level where we're saying you have to go through a test and all that sort of stuff. But once you've done the test, there's no rules and regulations. It's just about best practice at the end of the day. And this is where the confusion and everything comes in. You know, there's different sites implementing different rules and regulations around different people that have got different health and safety. You know, there's 38 different health and safety courses out there, you know, to get cards and stuff. It just breeds confusion all the way along. So at the end of the day, you know, you, Steve, could get on some sites where you might be known and you might know people on there and all that sort of stuff. You may not be able to get on other ones, you know, but there's no hard and fast rule that says this is going to happen and this is going to be enforced. No one's actually enforcing any of this.
yeah, again, so just move on to another question as well. I'm on your poll, trying to get a few. Stuart Shuttleworth again, experience is part of competence. Why are you expecting a labourer to gain academic qualifications? Industry accepted the touchscreen and learning, which alone is very hard for a labourer who has no academic background and causes huge stress. I get where that's coming from. Is this we are industry? Obviously, we give anyone opportunity, don't we? So and to come on site and yeah, are these tests potentially a little bit too much for what they are? But it comes down to HSE, I suppose, doesn't it, Alan?
Yeah. Well, for the labourer, there's two things that are, and this is what I talk about: moving 500,000 construction workers over to a qualification. So a labourer now today, 5 to 10 years ago, they didn't have to do anything other than the CITB health, safety, environment test. Today, they need to do that level 1 qualification. So you've got a level 1 qualification plus you've got the health, safety, environment test. That's how we've raised the bar across the industry. We've improved the standard at the labouring level, and then lots of other rules that we've changed over the years have all moved people up from either a level 1 to a level 2 or a level 2 to a level 3. So that's how we're raising the bar with standards and safety within the industry.
Yeah. Okay. So with these, from Debbie Colton, with these experienced workers, has any analysis been done if they have current competency profiles kept via some kind of management system?
So yeah, that's back to the industry accreditation withdrawal. That's something that can be looked at. So as I say, get onto the website, look at what options are available to you, and as part of your, if you're doing a professional discussion, if that information is available, well, then that's what can be presented during your professional discussion if you've got that evidence.
Yeah. So on that one, lads, it's been an hour. They can just going through achievement equivalent, fine. Yeah, achieving for Mark Anthony, achieving a qualification is fine, but there's no guarantee of real competence. That is obviously always, yeah, I suppose in a way it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because
competence, it's a big issue. A card, the card shows that you've got your health and safety, that you've got your qualification, and whatever other additional training you need. Yeah. So yeah. That's part of the answer. Are you competent? I've got all this. It's all documented on the CSCS card. But competence goes down to continual site management. I could have every qualification in the world, but turn up with a bad attitude, and I'm no longer competent. I'm no longer focused on what's happening on the site. So competence is a continually managed thing, and a piece of plastic with some tech inside it isn't going to tell you if that individual is behaving the way they should be behaving. That's site management. So this is where it comes down to the role of CSCS. We do get a lot lumped onto CSCS about what people believe we're responsible for. What happens on site is beyond the gift of CSCS. That is up to principal contractors and management teams. CSCS's role is to verify that you have got the qualifications that the industry has told us you need to have in order to do your job safely.
Super. Okay, is there anything you guys want to, anyone else wants to say before we kind of come to an end? I'm conscious it's getting, I've literally got a lot of questions and I'm not going to take this on for too many hours. So Hugh, Paul, is there anything you want to get across? Any points that you want to discuss?
No, I'm fine.
No, I'll leave it to Hugh, sorry.
No, I'm fine, thanks. Thank you.
No, I think with deference to Alan, the CSCS do get a lot of grief from the construction industry, and I think a lot of that is because there is a lot of confusion about exactly how this works, and you know, and I think this comes down a lot to actually leadership of the construction world. You know, we're very much based, and Accredx exists because of actions via the CIC, because they see a problem within the professional world where they have a disconnect with the CSCS. We're trying to, you know, bridge that gap a little bit. You know, my only point would be that you know, there is a lot of education out there that is different from the CITB, and the CITB is not the one and only supplier of training out there to get CSCS cards. You know, and I would say to all employees, do look around and make sure you get the best fit for your organization moving forward, because actually, you know, we're taking an awful lot of money off of companies like you to get them compliant, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that he's getting compliant that actually don't need to be compliant because they don't fit within a certain you know, professional manner. So I think we've got to be very careful about how we move forward, and I think also we've got to start trusting people as well a little bit better than we do. You know, we lump everybody together into one bucket to get health and safety certified, rather than perhaps looking more sympathetically at the dynamics of people's jobs and their competencies that are required moving forward. But you know, I know Alan's done a brilliant job this morning, and I appreciate his coming on board and taking the grief, and I'm sure we could go on forever, but you know, it's not just about the CSCS. There are other organizations out there that can help and provide you with the training and you know, particularly through the CIC on a professional level.
Yeah, super. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, that's a big one for me, actually. It's kind of, again, finding out what is the right thing for everybody, isn't it? But it's a very complicated subject. I hope we've answered a few questions today. I think there's still a lot we can do in terms of getting this message. This message got to go for us to the guys on the ground. So there's levels of command, but if we can market all this in a way, we can put this message straight out there online, and the people on site, they're on their phones every tea break. They'll see the answers there and then. So hopefully we can do that. But a massive thank you to you, Alan and Paul, for your time today. I know it's a precious one on a Friday afternoon now as well, and especially to yourself, Alan, as well. I know it's obviously such a hot subject at the moment, and for yourself to step forward and say, I'm willing to take some questions and communicate with us is, yeah, hats off to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
A massive thank you to Construction Wave as well for giving us the platform today and asking me to hosting it. I think it's been a good opportunity. And hopefully, I've done a few webinar panels and webinars and stuff in the past, and I'm a big believer of let's not just do a 1 hour lip service and all disappear again. So hopefully, this can be the start of something where we can pursue this conversation in any kind of way going forward to make it easy for everyone. If we do that, then the industry will be a better place. But thank you, gents. I'll leave you on that. It's been a great turnout. To anyone whose questions I haven't answered, sorry. There's only 1 hour in it for me, so we can't go on forever, but we'll do what we can. Someone actually mentioned, can we take these questions and send them over to be answered? But I will, Alan, I think that's the conversation we can have after.
Yeah, that's fine.
Quite a few. I don't know how I copy and paste them over, but I'll give it a go. But lovely. Thank you, gents. Have a great afternoon and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Take care. All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Thank you.